township field. The day they got it, she was going.
Well, I have been very busy recently with just so much to do. It's springtime, and now we've transitioned into summer, and hopefully out of the monsoon season soon. I have been mowing grass, I have been edging, I have been working on some other folks' yards who have reached a point where they can't really work on their yard anymore. So I've been very busy. And that has kind of slowed me down on my science fiction reading and responding to everybody else's reviews and editorials. But I did manage to finish a couple things. I'm not sure you guys can see it, but The World Turned Upside Down is completed here, and I'll do a review on that soon. And I'll have Pohl's Black Star Rising finished hopefully in the next week. But this is about The Doors of His Face, The Lamps of His Mouth, Roger Zelazny, September 1965 F&SF. Most of my drag racing videos, even though I continued to drag race right through 2019 from the late 1970s, were recorded on VHS, then Super VHS, and they simply do not transfer well to digital, mostly because of the bit rate. You lose a lot of information, and they had very poor resolution to begin with. By the time the software and hardware gets done with them, they look pretty bad. So maybe you'll be able to see what I included in the beginning of this. I get that some folks like daring adventures or even dangerous, challenging undertakings, but some may go a bit too far. Now, I got some criticism over my drag racing, going 120 miles an hour and a quarter mile. There is some danger involved, but in all the 45 years that I did drag race, I only saw a couple of accidents and no fatalities or anything like that. You're just going straight and stopping. So I didn't feel like I was hanging off of a cliff or trying to attack a giant dinosaur. But at any rate, we will talk about the book here, or the novelette here, and that is in my copy of Nebula Award Stories, which is the first action the SFWA took, and I think it was pretty darn good. It looks like back in 1967, Doubleday had published the book already in 1966, and this is my pocket book edition, published November 1967, and I would have bought this probably in late 1967 or early 1968. So Damon Knight dedicates the book to the memory of C.M. Kornbluth, Henry Kuttner, Richard McKenna, H. Beam Piper, and E.E. Smith. So this 1966 Nebula Award-winning and a little complex SF novelette that does contain some wry humor and pokes fun at certain obsessions, we'll say, and it is an enjoyable read. And it could save you some time, or at least help make sense of two classic novels. Zelazny covers some of Melville's topics in Moby Dick, notably the Leviathan, in multiple religious, historical, and symbolic novels that the Leviathan appears in, and in multiple references as well. Zelazny accomplishes this in a pretty concise and somewhat plain-spoken manner. This story won more votes than the next 4 stories in the category combined in that year of the Nebula Awards. So I'll try to show the first sentence in Moby Dick and the first sentence in Zelazny's novelette here in a minute. Melville's first sentence is, "Call me Ishmael." And this is by the narrator, who seems a little uncertain what his name or identity is. And he is broke. Later we learn the Pequod's entire crew is bait for Moby Dick. Zelazny's first sentence is, "I'm a bait man." Again, his name and identity are not clear early in the novella, but clearly he is going to be bait for something. And he is also bankrupt. In the next sentence, Zelazny then reviews Victor Hugo's The Miserables, I'm not going to try to pronounce the French, in one shot. And this is what he says. "No one is born a bait man, except in a French novel where everyone is. In fact, I think that's the title, We Are All Bait." And then he says, "Pfft." So I'll try to show you this and see if I can. Generally, I don't have much success with that. I have Richard's bookmark here, and I will try to make sure that the camera focuses in on this time. Hopefully you will be able to read that, and you'll see what I'm talking about there. And here we'll have Melville's novel. And I'll attempt the same thing here. And there it is. "Call me Ishmael." And we'll give that some time to focus on that. And from there, now he does actually review Moby Dick here a little bit, and I think we've gotten his critique of The Miserables already. But Zelazny does this in 40 or so pages. But there is clearly no substitute for reading the Melville and the Hugo. I am not suggesting that at all. The title of this Zelazny appears based on verses from the book of Job in the King James Version of the Bible, chapter 41, verses 14 and 19, which are part of the description of the Leviathan. "Who can open the doors of his face, and out of his mouth go burning lamps?" Now this story happens on Venus. Before we knew exactly what was on Venus, but just a few years before, this novelette is a giant fish biblical Leviathan story with several plots. I actually think the whale in Zelazny's story is a subplot. The other is about a troubled relationship, if I can speak today, caused by immaturity and ego issues. The main character, Zelazny's main character, Carl, spends a fortune and wrecks his marriage pursuing an Ichthyosaurus elasmognathus. Now that's my best shot at pronouncing that, to satisfy his competitive obsession to climb mountains or set records or whatever. Zelazny explores Carl's wrecked relationship regarding his very tough, determined, and very financially successful ex-wife Jean. Jean has shown up on Venus 5 years after Carl's immensely expensive failure to capture an Icky, which is what they call this monster, which leads to his bankruptcy and other issues. She is there, supposedly, to capture an Icky for herself. However, she is really attempting to rekindle her marriage, or at least bring Carl back to Earth, sort of bringing him down to Earth. She buys the large ship 10 Square, Carl built to capture Icky, and hires Carl as a bait man, the guy who sets the hook for Icky deep in the sea, and very dangerous work. I'm not sure exactly what Zelazny is saying there about how your wife would have you do that, but you guys might be able to figure that out. Zelazny begins integrating some of the content of Melville's religious and moral topics of Moby Dick into several characters' thoughts and dialogue, then using those lessons and the results of Carl's obsession to capture an Icky in a multiple character attempt to resolve Carl and Jean's relationship troubles. This dialogue is pretty pointed and blunt and is actually kind of funny in some spots. And it also involves Carl and one or two of his oldest friends who become quite critical of Carl. And now this is my take on it. You guys might think something else about it. Zelazny uses a lot of older references. And I'm going to kind of attempt again to show you what is included in my copy of Moby Dick regarding old biblical references, old intellectual references, old play references in here. There is a huge amount of this stuff that Melville was quite aware of, I'm sure, because you can see it in his writings. I'll just show one more page. There's a lot of them. And so we continue on with that. Zelazny uses an older phrase, seen through a glass darkly, which refers to an imperfect or obscure vision of reality, often used in religious contexts or other, who knows what gravity is. Zelazny uses the phrase, seen through a glass darkly. Zelazny also writes, there is no power on earth that can be compared with him who was made to fear no one. I had to look this up. I used Zelazny's quote, and the AI came right to this. There is no power on earth that can be compared with him who was made to fear no one. And it compares this to Job 41:33 in the King James Version. The verse originally states, there is not on earth his like that is made without fear. No power there is on earth that shall be comparison to him, which is made that he should dread nothing. The phrase highlights the unparalleled power and fearlessness of the Leviathan, a sea monster described in the book of Job. This creature is so powerful and fearless that nothing on earth can be compared to it. Now here's Zelazny describing Icky at the moment of capture. He and Jean are successful at hooking this beast with this gigantic ship that Carl had built earlier. And she is running basically what I assume is a gigantic rod and reel that is affixed to the deck of the ship and that you actually can live in, and I would consider it like a turret to a battleship, 16-inch guns or something like that. He's describing the moment of capture. He looked down as the God of our most ancient ancestors might have looked down. Fear, shame, and mocking laughter rang in my head. Now, I'm not going to tell you what happens from there, other than Carl and Jean both are having trouble, and this was Carl's failure, the first attempt that he made, is when he looked into Icky's eyes, he could not initiate the procedure to inject them with the anesthesia that would allow capture. And they're both dithering over this moment as this gigantic being, which they don't know is intelligent or not, is looking at them. So I won't give you the resolution there. Final line of the story. And it doesn't seem to make sense at first, but it does. I had to look everything up in my dictionary. Final line of the story. No one is born a bait man, I don't think, but the rings of Saturn sing epithalamium, I can't pronounce it, epithalamium, the sea beast dower. Possible breakdown. No one is a bait man, I don't think, and that equals free will, but a lot of that depends on where and when you're born, which you don't have much say over. But the rings of Saturn, well, I think the rings of Saturn are Zelazny's way of saying wedding rings could be showing up shortly. And seeing, I'll try to pronounce it again, epithalamium, I've got it written out here how to pronounce it, and that equals a wedding song for either the bride or groom. So I think I might have given away the end there, but the sea beast dower could equal the scientific, financial, and symbolic value of Icky, who they are not trying to kill, they're trying to capture one for study. The value of Icky being brought by both Jean and Carl to maybe a new relationship or marriage. Great story, highly recommended, 9 stars out of 10. And there's a lot of similar SF. I think one of the best, if not the best, compared to this one, is Bright Side Crossing by Alan E. Norse. And it is contained in this fabulous anthology by Damon Knight. And I first read this short story when I was 12 years old in the 7th grade, and I came up with this book right away. This is a fantastic anthology, and I highly recommend that one as well. But at any rate, I've run on too long here, and I have enjoyed both these stories for years and years, and I did make an attempt based on these stories not to be too crazy about climbing ropes. I even climbed a cliff once, but I never did that again. So you guys have a great day, and I hope everybody is feeling well and having a great time.